John asked me to give a talk at LINX100 about my time at the BBC and the challenges we had joining LINX. Just to give you a little bit of a timeline here, BBC's first internet connection, IP connection, was right back in 1992, but I'm going to focus here on the time period between 97 and 99, maybe a bit into 2000. When I joined the BBC in the Research and Development Department, and Brandon employed me at the time, the BBC had its main internet connection was a 64 kilobit leased line to UUNet. One of my first jobs was to increase that up to 2 meg, and pretty much all of the BBC's internet activities were focused on a single Sun Spark Station 2, for those that remember them, BBC Gate. Did everything: firewall, mail gateway, SOX proxy for outbound internet access, web proxy, FTP server, and a bit of web server as well, because that was starting to take off. Those that remember it, it was the NCSA HTTP daemon. If you want a bit more information about the early days of the BBC on the internet, Brandon wrote a sort of little bit of a summary, URLs on the screen, on the presentation there. Moving forwards, the internet was taking off. BBC was providing a lot of content that people wanted to get to. So we built ourselves a little server farm in Telehouse. You see a picture of it there. A lot of Sun servers. Sun was the thing in those days. But serving the internet from the UK was expensive. The BBC had a lot of overseas people wanted to access it, so we built another one in New York as well. And we started peering. At New York Internet Exchange, NYIIX, which was run by Telehouse out there. Traffic just kept growing, as it does. 1998, demand was growing rapidly. We had a 30 meg connection out in New York and our peering. In the UK, we had what's lovingly called a partial transit, so pretty much buying links routes from VBCnet, 100 meg. But we were doing this all on the cheap. This was an R&D activity. The BBC, although it was trying to do stuff on the internet, it didn't really see it as a big thing, even though people were wanting to access it. So we pretty much had to beg, steal, borrow. We were using old servers that were handed down from R&D and things like that. Traffic was going up. We had no money. We had to try and reduce our costs. So we had to start peering. At the time, there was only really 2 internet exchanges in the UK, LINX and LONAP. LINX was too hard. So we joined LONAP. We started peering there. Things were going well. Anyone that's heard a LINX presentation about history of LINX, they all seem to revolve around Paul Thornton. So when I was digging back through the email archives, email 1 of the LINX mailbox was an email from Paul Thornton. If this international stuff is coming real soon, it's worth talking to Nick Lewis nowish, so get whoever would be doing this sort of thing to give him a call. It all comes down to the members' vote, and basically that comes down to a well-filled-out form with all the caveats explained. If only it was that simple. So this international thing. Pretty much all of you in the room have joined LINX, and you'll know that the joining requirements are documented in the MOU. We're up to version 16.1 of the MOU at the moment. But back in 97, 98, we're back in the early days, version 3. And the joining requirements read as follows. Applicants must have their own independent, permanent, international connection to the internet. As a rule of thumb, applicants must have paths from within their UK network to 4 of the internet root name servers which do not pass through the existing LINX members. As the number of LINX members grows, that becomes a bit of a challenge. Our London partial transit was from VBCnet. They're a LINX member, so that doesn't help. Although we had the New York network, it was kind of standalone. We didn't really want to join them up for shared failure modes. But if we're going to join LINX, we need international connectivity. didn't have a lot of money, international connectivity was expensive. So let's buy a 256 kilobit a second frame relay circuit from VBCnet. And if that wasn't small enough, I carved it up a bit more. 64K for content distribution. Let's get the web content out there without it being ground to a halt by people trying to access it, which left 192K for our UK international internet connectivity. But we had some. Trace routes didn't go through LINX members anymore. We could finally join LINX. Had to be clever, though. 192K of internet transit. We've got web farm in London, web farm in New York. Couldn't really afford for that traffic to go over that 192K, so I wrote a DNS server, as you do. Take all our peering routes in London, load them into the DNS server. If you're trying to look up www.bbc.co.uk from one of those routes we learn in London, well, we'll serve you from London. Otherwise, we'll serve you in New York. Interesting side effect of all this, if you didn't peer with us in London, we were going to serve you from New York, and that meant we were going to use your international connectivity that was quite expensive. Funnily enough, didn't have problems getting peering at LONAP. So let's join LINX. This took a while. LINX updated their MOU. We're up to version 5 now, 13th of August, 1999. And they've rewritten the joining requirements a little bit. Applicants must have their own permanent connection to the internet. Ooh, no international requirement anymore. Must have demonstrate 4 trace routes to the route name servers, but they've taken out the requirement to not go through LINX members. This sounds easy. Just a minor sticking point. Buried in the operational requirements, number 3, members must publish service details, including at least one public service. Including at least one public service allowing customers to connect to the internet. Oh well. Paul Thornton said, as long as it's well explained, we'll be fine. So, 17th of August, 1999, I sent off our application form to LINX. Question 4. If the applicant doesn't fully comply with the conditions... Okay. Yeah. If the applicant doesn't fully comply with the conditions of the MOU, what benefits will the applicant bring to the LINX? Well, we don't currently provide public access to the internet. However, as one of the biggest content providers in Europe, we're looking to provide best possible access from customers of LINX members to the BBC's internet content. Should be fine. Oh, we also provide ISP-like services to the 25,000 staff within the BBC. So we waited. For those that aren't familiar, back in those days, every new member that wanted to join, the other members got to have a vote on it. The initial voting period runs for 3 full days from this time. If there's an objection, it could be extended to 5. No one really waited. The very next day, with my Serbernet hat on, I'd like to offer the BBC the following internet transit services. 100 meg Ethernet links only transit, guaranteed 0 contention as far as links, only £30,000 a year per port. Next day, another one. Energis. They've heard through the grapevine. BBC's been turned down. Hang on, I thought we weren't supposed to know anything. So yeah, we didn't get in. Couple of technicalities, but fundamentally, question 14, we didn't offer a public internet service. Quite conveniently, for those that are familiar with the BBC, it's full of lots of divisions and they don't really talk to each other. But the BBC's commercial arm, BBC Worldwide, decided to launch a dial-up ISP, freebeeb.net. This is convenient. It was outsourced to Demon, big dial-up provider, LINX member. So it's not really our network, but nothing in the MOU says it has to be our dial-up service, just that we had to have one. So we complied with the MOU finally. Couldn't possibly be rejected now. A month later, I reapplied. 3-day voting period started again. And I got a phone call, very next day. 256 kilobits, you can't run an internet service on that, you must be freeloading on us. Okay. Referred it to LINX, to Keith Mitchell at the time, and he confirmed no one had actually rejected the application. Nothing in the MOU says how big your connection's got to be, and he's going to remind people that you shouldn't really be talking to the applicants. This time, it worked. 22nd of September, we got confirmation that our application had been successful. 84 LINX members, 12 of them accepted the application, and of those, 3 said they were likely to peer with us. Oh. Was it worth all the hassle? So, I tried getting peering. Very open peering policy. With the BBC, we can't really... We want people to get to the content, we can't really pay for it, so let's try and get as many peers as possible. Went through the list of all 84 of those LINX members, prioritised the ones that were UK-based, they're the ones that are most likely to want to get to the BBC, and those outside the UK most likely to peer with us. Sent a peering request to each of them, and it was interesting to see the replies. Our peering policy normally operates on an ISP to ISP basis. Whilst we realise that the BBC is now offering ISP services, they seem to be outsourced to other ISPs and not run internally by the BBC. I'm happy to know that this wasn't obvious from your application, so no. I'm afraid I must reject your request for peering at the LINX, as it is not Frontier's policy to peer with organisations other than ISPs. Thank you for contacting us, blah, blah, blah. You seem to be new to this peering thing. Come back later. As you do not provide any service other than serving your own content through this connection, we decline your offer to peer. If this one-way traffic imbalance were to change significantly in the future, perhaps by merging your dial-up service, we may reconsider your decision. I don't know where all these access providers thought their customers were trying to get to. And just digging out the emails, there was a nice one from Neil to UK Not Mailing List. Hello, Mr. BBC salesman. Oh, you don't have one. I'd like to host my content in your colo facility. Oh, you don't have one of them either. I'd like to pay you for this. Oh, you can't do that. So you're not really an ISP then. But we joined and we got peering. So the reason John asked me to give this talk was that this sort of changed LINX. Clearly there was a divide of opinion about the BBC joining. It was very much done based on the MOU. As we demonstrated, it was not necessarily well written. It needed a restructure, it needed a rethink. And LINX, I think LINX knew, but the LINX itself knew, but the LINX members needed to recognise that the internet was more than just access providers. It was content providers as well. And we were at the forefront, but clearly today there's a lot more. And by 2001, the LINX MOU, now up to version 7, had been significantly rewritten. And there are now just 3 main prerequisites to becoming a LINX member. You've got to be a legal entity. You've got to have an ASN. And the candidate's business shall include the internet transmission of third-party content or services. So actually, all those restrictive requirements have been taken away. And the rest is history. Any questions? No? Thank you.